This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize. He didn't do anything. They gave it to Obama for doing absolutely nothing. He got the Nobel Prize for doing nothing. They should give me the Nobel Prize. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize. I had so many people, you should get the Nobel Prize. I was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. I got the Nobel Peace Prize nomination. I got nominated for the Nobel Prize. Where's my Nobel Peace Prize they don't talk about? A Peace Prize Nobel nomination, and they didn't cover it. And I don't care, but I'm not looking for it. I'm not politicking for it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of unfairness in this world.
Quiet Riot.
Hello and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the Village Fete, to our Thursday County Show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Naomi. How are you, Alex?
I'm all right.
Yeah?
Trying to get back into Podyssey. I said I would give myself 2 weeks of a palate cleanser and then get back into it.
How exciting.
I kind of have too many ideas at the moment. I had the first meeting with backers, the first Zoom with backers a couple of days ago, and the second one is actually this afternoon at 3 p.m. to get ideas for topics for season 2, and they had so many good ideas. I was particularly struck by someone who suggested a special episode about what the ancient Greeks kept as pets.
Oh, and?
Well, it's not how you'd think in many ways. So they kept dogs. Dogs are involved in a lot of stories, like the return of Odysseus, for instance. It's his dog that recognizes him. But dogs were sort of functional animals for them, for hunting and guarding and things like that. So they were in the same category as horses. They weren't really a pet. They weren't considered a pet. The animals they kept just for pleasure and companionship were a bit different. Geese were very popular, I'll tell you that.
Well, they're a good guard animal. They're vicious.
Ladies tended to keep a favorite goose by their side.
Keep them bloats away.
Now, as you know, our philosophy is to make everything available to everyone for free at the same time. Nothing behind a paywall, but that won't keep Kenny in Greek pasta and filthy sculptures, will it? So if you can, please head over to ko-fi.com/quietriotpod to back us for as little as $5. That would go a long way towards us being able to fill his stockings.
And if you are beginning to think about gifts, then we have 2 ideas for you. One is to visit our bookshop, link in the show notes, but the other, drumroll, is to keep your eyes firmly peeled on our socials and website, because the much demanded Quiet Riot and Podyssey merch will be dropping very soon.
Amazing. About bloody time as well.
About bloody time, yeah.
Now, what shall we cover on today's show, Naomi? I think we have to talk about the latest from Gaza and the fallout, I guess, from the Nobel Peace Prize announcement. It sounds ridiculous to even say that, doesn't it? There shouldn't be fallout from a Peace Prize announcement. But we are where we are.
And let's also, Alex, zero in on where Reform UK are at. The reports that they're really struggling to find all of the Elon Musk Doge-style savings they thought they would be able to cut when they made it into controlling various councils. But also,
there's a shock.
There's a real interesting disconnect between the fact that they are doing quite well in local elections, but not doing so well at holding on to elected officials. They've had to cull quite a few. So let's have a little look at that. And then I think in an homage to Jilly Cooper, I'd love to talk about our favourite trashy novels with each other.
Yeah, I think that's more than enough to fill the show. Let's crack that riding crop in a very Jilly Cooper sort of way.
Quiet Riot.
And the winner is Soz Donald, not you. As the ceasefire in Gaza took effect, a large convoy of Palestinian refugees, over half a mile long, made the long walk north, back to whatever is left of their home. Details are beginning to emerge of how the ceasefire almost did not happen, and both sides had to essentially be sat on by the White House until it was signed. The release of the last few hostages, or their remains, is expected over the weekend, and in fact may have taken place by the time you listen to this show. The question is, of course, what happens next after the hostages are released? What is to prevent the IDF from crossing back over its new boundary, the yellow line, in order to, quote, finish the job, to use Netanyahu's own chilling words? The answer is, well, of course, continuing US pressure. So it may be just as well that Norway didn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize this week, and that the committee were really rather clever in not breaking all of its rules to award the accolade to President Trump, just because he really, really wanted it. Maybe keeping him hoping that he's going to get it next year will turn out to be a very smart strategy, although the announcement contains some hints that go against that notion. Let's have a listen.
Democracy is a precondition for lasting peace. However, we live in a world where democracy is in retreat, where more and more authoritarian regimes are challenging norms and resorting to violence. The Venezuelan regime's rigid hold on power and its repression of its population are not unique in the world. We see the same trends globally. Rule of law abused by those in control. Free media silenced. Critics imprisoned. And societies pushed towards authoritarian rule and militarization.
Alex, who did win the Peace Prize and why?
The Peace was won by a woman called María Corina Machado, hailed by the Nobel Committee, and I quote, as one of the most extraordinary examples of civilian courage in Latin America in recent times, and praised for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela, despite serious threats against her life. She's a Venezuelan politician. She's in her late 50s. Now, what needs to be said, first of all, is that Machado is not some liberal progressive. She's traditional conservative right-wing politician. But Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro is adopting more and more authoritarian methods. He's largely believed to have lost the last election. There were numbers gathered from various polling stations that simply did not match up at all with the eventual announcement that went, oh, he won. You know, he had actually lost by a landslide. By a landslide. María Corina Machado was actually barred from standing in that election. She lives in hiding in Venezuela, because there have been threats, certainly that she will be arrested, and also threats against her life by Maduro loyalists. She was barred from standing at the election and managed to get everyone behind a very little-known candidate who replaced her on the ballot, a man called Edmundo González.
Right.
Basically, her life's work in the last decade, I would say, has been to say, don't worry about our different political positions. We need to unite because what we're defending is democracy of any sort. We can go on and argue about politics once we have recovered the right to actually elect the people we want. But at the moment, we live in an increasingly authoritarian state, and so we must all unite to deal with that.
How very quiet rice of her.
She's a worthy winner, and her reaction in a video message could not have been less Trump-like, really. She said, I don't deserve this. I'm just one person. This is the achievement of a whole society. I can't see Donald saying that. Can you?
The person who actually got the Nobel Prize called me and said, I'm accepting this in honor of you because you really deserved it. That a very nice thing to do. I didn't say then give it to me, though. I think she might have. She was very nice. And I've been helping her along the way. They need a lot of help in Venezuela. It's a basic disaster. So, and you could also say it was given out for 24, and I was running for office in 24. You know, all of the transactions that we did in terms of closing. But there are those that say we did so much that they should have done it. But I don't take. I'm happy because I saved millions of lives.
I saw that White House Comms Director Stephen Chung accused the committee of prioritizing politics over peace. I think they prioritized process, but whatever, and went on about Trump's recent Gaza ceasefire deal and framing him as this visionary peacemaker. But let's not forget, this guy campaigned really hard. Like, Trump actively lobbied for it, and he got allies from all over the world, international leaders, to make representations in his favor to the committee.
They're all in the pot, but for next year, that's the point.
Exactly.
What I find particularly awkward is that Machado was actually nominated by loads of Republicans in the States. They wrote an open letter signed by, among others, people like Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. I was reading a piece that had minister quotes from Norway saying that they had made contingency arrangements in case he decides to punish them with tariffs for not getting the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, that is a genuinely mad situation, isn't it? What I find very, very funny is that loads of senators have already kind of started campaigning for next year. So, like, within an hour of the announcement being made, there were people on Fox News saying, well, they've trashed their reputation, and if they want to repair it in some way, they have to give him the prize next year. And then there's a Republican congressman called Buddy Carter. Buddy Carter. I mean, I've never heard a more American name in my life. Buddy Carter. He's introducing a resolution in Congress that awards the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize to Trump anyway.
And Donald Trump has done that, and I applaud him for that. That's why he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, and that's why I'm introducing a resolution for a sense of Congress today that will honor him with the Nobel Peace Prize, and if need be, we'll call for a discharge petition on that. I hope we can work with the Speaker, though, and get it on the floor for a vote.
Do you think Democrats will ever acknowledge his role in this peace process?
I don't think so. And let's face it, right now, what we're witnessing with Chuck Schumer is just trying to be more anti-Trump than AOC because he's afraid he's going to get primaried by her. They have such a Trump derangement syndrome over there that I doubt anything that it is going to help President Trump or honor President Trump is going to be supported by the Democrats.
It's not how anything works, but why not?
Chung described Trump as having the heart of a humanitarian. There will never be anyone like him. He can move mountains with the sheer force of his will. I mean, Stephen, man.
You can't, you know.
How brown is your nose now?
Bless them. On a more serious note, he has, however unorthodoxly, managed to get things moving in Gaza. But, I mean, is it a peace deal? He's hailing it as a peace deal forever in the whole region. It's obviously not that. But what do we think? Will it last? Well,
at the moment, it's an early implementation phase of a ceasefire, basically, that has taken effect. That is the first time the fighting has halted since March. It is contingent on various things. Of course, first and foremost, releasing all hostages, dead and alive, and a partial withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza. And then, of course, we have to have all of the humanitarian aid escalating. The food deliveries need to come in, the medical supplies to the millions of residents, and the reconstruction. Because this place is flattened. There is no health system. There are barely any bloody roads or homes. So the challenges massively remain. I think at the moment, all the experts are saying it's cautious optimism. Yes, it's good, but the truth is nobody really knows if it will hold, if one side or other will break it at some point over an issue that they find egregious. So it is great that it's got this far. I don't think anyone is prepared to call it yet for whether it's going to last days, months, or years.
Quiet Riot. If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it. Because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo. Quiet Riot.
I actually had a read of it, which I hadn't before. I'd seen press reports and I knew the outline of the big ticket items, but I had an actual read of it before we recorded. And it's interesting, even the language in which it's expressed, it's kind of a wish list. Like, this is the stuff that will happen now, and then we hope in the future all these things will happen.
But that sounds exactly like what came out of the von der Leyen Starmer summit back in May. I mean, that is just Diplo speak. It is how a lot of this stuff gets written.
I know that. The difference is the Starmer von der Leyen document then had a structure for going forward, including the annual meeting, the checks on progress, the forming of the groups to advance each thing. This doesn't. So this really is just a wish list with zero notion of how they will happen. And they cannot happen. Look, it's great. It's great. Right now, people are not getting killed. And apparently, because there is so much aid already waiting to get in, as soon as it becomes possible to get that in, Gaza will be flooded with food and medicine, which can only be a very, very good thing.
But of course, it's going to be totally dependent on the international community holding it together, whether that's other Arab nations, but particularly the US. And so to your earlier point, thinking about the Nobel Peace Prize, that dangling in front of him for a year hopefully means that for at least a year, he will keep pressure on Netanyahu or whomever replaces him if there is an election in Israel.
Yeah. I read something that had a little bit behind the scenes-y stuff. And as I understand it, the UK has taken charge of one aspect of it, and France has taken charge of another aspect of it. Like, one is doing how the humanitarian aid gets in, the other one is putting together the rebuilding package in terms of practical ways of doing it. And Trump will sit on that council. So I guess the Arab nations will have to make sure that the Palestinian side doesn't break it. Trump will have to make sure that Netanyahu doesn't break it, and everyone else can get busy with the actual rebuilding
delivery
and reconstruction. The whole Peace Prize stuff got me thinking, what is peace? Is peace merely the absence of war? Is that peace? Or is peace something else? Is it something that includes a measure of well-being, prosperity, and also law and a system of resolving conflict without violence? Because that, to me, seems a more positive and enduring version of peace than we've stopped shooting at each other for now, therefore this is peace.
I mean, as somebody that grew up in Northern Ireland, I echo that completely. You can have a frozen conflict without a resolved conflict.
And Trump, back home, is doing the opposite of that, which is why I thought in that announcement by the Nobel Committee, there were some quite pointed references to arresting political enemies, appointing politically motivated judges, and militarizing the police and things like that. I thought quite a lot of that was pointing at Trump because, he's deploying now more and more military internally in Chicago and Portland, the latest two cities. The decision to send the National Guard to Portland has basically been traced to a misunderstanding. I think quite accurately by a journalist called Aaron Rupar, who you might know. He's the one that does all the clips.
Yeah, he's great on social media,
Yeah, he's great. Basically, what happened was that a week before, Fox was doing a report on Portland, crime rates and things like that, as, they tend to do. They tend to present this image of big cities as hellholes. And while they were doing that, there was B-roll footage from protests maybe 5 years ago. I think it was 2020, early 2020, sort of just as the pandemic was biting, basically, and there were lockdowns and stuff like that, quite close to the George Floyd stuff as well. And there was unrest around America. And so they were showing B-roll of a car burning and things like that on repeat. And it seems that Trump thought those were live images from Portland, because there's then a report of a conversation he had with the governor where she was saying, everything is good here at the moment. Everything is very peaceful.
Portland is where young people go to retire.
I know. And are you saying that what I see on the TV isn't happening? I see fires. And it was quite clear that he thought the B-roll footage that was playing on Fox was live. And then you have the New York City Attorney General, Letitia James, who prosecuted him for fraud successfully. Like, he was found guilty and then went on appeal, and they reduced the fine, but they upheld the verdict. So he was guilty. And she's been charged by a grand jury for some total bullshit. This is only a fortnight after that post on Truth Social that looked as if it was a private message to Pam Bondi.
Oh, yeah.
That said, Pam, how come we haven't gone after Comey and Schiff and Letitia? I look like a joke. And lo and behold,
they've gone after her. Yeah.
3 weeks later, well, Comey as well. So 3 weeks later, both Comey and James have been charged. It is so slapdash dictatorial, like they've just declared Antifa, a thing that essentially does not exist as an organization, but they've just declared it an international terrorist organization.
How? Can you?
By executive order, have a listen to how that actually happened.
Are you going to work with your administration, as the Secretary of State's here, are you going to work with your administration to designate it a foreign terror organization?
You mean a terror?
Antifa? A foreign terror organization.
Well, has that been done? Pretty close, right? Would you like to see it done?
Yes, Mr. President.
Do you think it would help?
They have foreign links
I'd be glad
all
to
across
do it.
Western
I think it's
Europe.
the kind of thing I'd like to do. If you'd like to, does
Middle
everybody
East.
agree? If you agree, I agree. Let's get it done, okay? Let's get it done. Marco, we'll take care of it.
Mr. President.
That's international, you mean?
Yes.
International.
Mr. President.
Sounds good to me.
Foreign terror organization.
Steve, are you okay with it?
Yes, it's true. There are extensive foreign ties, and I think that would be a very valid step to take.
Good, I think so too.
Yes.
Good, I think it's a good point. Thank you.
I mean, Alex.
So it's like, yeah, why not?
But when we take everything you've just said in the round, it's somebody who's just not with it enough to be making any decisions. He shouldn't be allowed to decide which club he uses on the golf course, let alone whether to deploy National Guard to a city or prescribe an organization. Just,
Yeah.
America, what have you done?
I think that's the optimistic interpretation, to be honest, that he's just a senile old kakafta that goes randomly after people he dislikes and doesn't know what he's doing. The slightly darker possibility is that he knows exactly what he's doing and what happened in Los Angeles and then in Washington, D.C., and now in Chicago and Portland is basically getting people used to the idea of army in their streets. And what happens if in the midterms he decides to post a couple of armed National Guard people outside every polling station?
Yeah.
So that would be the darker interpretation, that all this is leading somewhere.
Quiet riot.
Thanks to the ever-dramatic French Parliament, we dropped our regular Happy News feature in this week's main episode to bring you the voice of reason that is Olivier Morel. This can only mean one thing. We are bringing you today not one, but two reasons to grin and share it.
Good news is welcome to me. Bad news is hell come to me. Good news. I want good news.
So, Naomi, we've each got one. What have you got to turn my frown upside down?
Well, you know I love a good animal-themed story, a conservation adjacent story, and...
Oh, I've got an animal one too.
Oh, great. Okay, well, let's hope they're not the same one. The BBC is reporting that the green turtle has been rescued from the brink of extinction. These are the huge, gigantic creatures that you'll have seen on Attenborough-style documentaries, and they've been listed as endangered since the 1980s, mostly because they were overhunted for turtle soup. They're beautiful decorative shells, and I think some consider their eggs a delicacy too. But now, because of decades of global conservation efforts, which just goes to show how hard and long it is to turn around a species loss, it's not something you can do in a few years. This has been a 40-year effort of protecting eggs, releasing hatchlings on beaches, reducing accidental capture from fishing. New data is now showing that the green turtle population is rebounding. And it's all thanks to efforts of people, volunteers often, who patrol beaches, protect the females and the eggs at nesting sites, help release the hatchlings into the sea and make sure birds don't swoop down and gobble them up en route. Plus bounds and bounds of education and awareness to reduce turtles being killed, to be eaten, and measures to stop them being captured in fishing trawler nets. So, Alex, from me to you, today's Grin and Share It is turtle power.
Yeah.
What have you happened upon to cheer us up?
This story I'm telling you, it has everything. Entrepreneurialism, compassion, generosity, and seagulls. It was sent in by listener Sven Rufus. So this is about the cheesy toast snack sandwich shop in St. Andrews, where people had been reporting that seagulls were nicking their cheesy toasties.
It's happened to the best of us.
A couple of years ago, the owner of that little cafe, Kate Carter Lang, introduced a £1 seagull insurance addition to the bill, so that if a bird takes your meal, you can go back in and get a replacement. And every penny of the seagull insurance goes to Alzheimer's Research UK.
Lovely.
And so far, they've raised over £3,000 for it. The £1 seagull insurance, I think, has been used 6 or 7 times on 6 or 7 occasions. People had their toasty nicked and had to go back in and claim, as it were. So it hasn't broken the bank, and it's making loads of money for charity.
How lovely.
So I just thought, utterly lovely, as an initiative with generosity at its center. You know that Alzheimer's research is a cause that's very, very close to my heart. And also, I love that it's not some massive chain doing it, that it's a small local sandwich shop. And actually, they've become a bit of a hotspot for tourists to go and sort of get their toasty and get a photograph next to the sign about the seagull insurance. So it's boosted their business as well. And I just find that all around, like you can hear how much I'm smiling right now.
I can. It's lovely.
Absolutely lovely, lovely, lovely story, I think.
Well, listeners, head on down to the show notes, find the links and grin, but much more importantly, spread the good news and share it.
Quiet Riot. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
Quiet Riot. Now, on Thursday's main show with Sam Friedman, we dissected Tory party fortunes and mentioned the string of defections to the Reform Party that happened during the course of the Manchester Conference. Meanwhile, Reform Council leaders have declared that the promises to cut local authority fat have failed because they've realised what most thinking people already knew: councils are already running on fumes.
Today, we welcome County Council leader, Reform UK's Dan Harrison, into the studio.
We've already made quite a few little savings, probably several million. One on how we do contracts, £1 million. Another one where we've just, we've had a vacancy, we haven't filled them, there's nearly another £1 million. There's lots of things. Right, so the efficiency that will start the beginning of November, the review and people investigating, it will be an efficiency from top to bottom, bottom to top of the whole the whole business. And it will do that. I'm absolutely confident that I'll be here in 6 months' time saying, well, Ben, this is what we've made in savings. This is how we're running the business forward.
When we spoke in that run-up to the election, you were pretty clear about where you thought the efficiencies could come from. Can I play you a clip of what you said in that Hustings meeting? Here we go.
The budget's really what it's all about, and people... Your potholes will disappear if we manage the budgets right. When you've got a cost of 5,000 staff at 60,000, it's 300 million straight away.
If I may say, you sounded pretty clear about where you thought the efficiencies were going to go. Can we drill into those figures for a second? So 5,000 people that you say cost £60,000 to employ, is that right?
No, all I'm saying is... The balance is not correct.
But to get that to an average, that must mean some people are paid a lot of money and some people aren't.
Well, we'll be looking at the whole range. The whole idea is, Ben, to bring people who deep dive specialists who look at efficiency. They come from big international companies. This is the key. They know what they're doing. To ask me where that will happen, it's impossible.
But that's what you campaigned on, though, wasn't it? That there was efficiencies to be made.
I will get them
through sacking people.
Well, I'm not saying that because that'd be outrageous. We'll deal with it proper, Ben. I'm not here to announce anything. For me to come on here today and start to predict and create stories flying around.
If you're talking about making efficiencies to the cost of the council, and you're
that's
citing
in your interpretation.
Well, you brought it up, £380 million.
Exactly, but it's going to be done correctly. I'm looking at AI. I'm interested how we can improve systems with AI. So it's going to be a once in a generation sweep through and look at how we operate. Are we operating efficiency?
So if these experts, we'll talk about them in a second, if these experts say to you there are efficiencies to be made by redundancies, is that a decision you would be comfortable with making?
Well, Ben, what will be, will be.
Kent County Council leader Reform's Lyndon Kemkaran set up DOLGE, a Department of Local Government Efficiency modelled on Elon Musk's original, but smaller presumably, and instructed it to cut wasteful spending and find cash-saving efficiencies. Months later, her cabinet member for social care declared the council is already down to the bare bones and the project has failed. Consequently, Kemkaran's administration will likely become a tax raiser, seeking a 5% hike to council tax to cover the shortfall. So, Naomi, is this the classic case of Baldrick's plan meeting reality?
I've got a cunning plan to cut back what has already been gnawed to the bone by Tory rats. Yeah, absolutely. It's also an example of their naivety and lack of experience. And I guess that is partly why we've seen Farage and Tice and Zia Youssef try to welcome in a handful of people that do have some kind of government experience. Because if you don't know how to run a council, you're sure as shit going to struggle to run a country.
Nadine Dorries, though.
I know. I still can see the trauma scars on people at DCMS who worked under her leadership. It is very, very predictable. We all knew that this would happen. In fact, quite a few people were welcoming reform taking control of quite a few councils this far out from a general election, in the full knowledge that they wouldn't be able to turn them around. They probably wouldn't do a better job than any other administration had managed to do because of that central government funding being cut so severely to local authorities since the austerity years, and then combined with making them more and more responsible for things like the delivery of adult and social care, that I think people were, like, okay, great, let them fail on their own terms, and then hopefully that message will cut through to voters ahead of a general election. Some people have been reacting to it in the region from opposition parties.
Liberal Democrat Deputy Leader Daisy Cooper said, and I quote, "It turns out cribbing the notes of dodgy American tech billionaires is no way to run a council." Labour MP for East Thanet, Polly Billington, said they made, I quote, "huge promises about savings and failed to find any because they don't know what they're talking about," which I thought was quite refreshingly direct, actually. So there's obviously quite a bit of schadenfreude going on. In September, the Reform leader of Lancashire County Council also said, and I quote, "It's not easy."
No,
it's not easy when they asked him if he had managed to find any savings a few months on. So I think we will see this pattern beginning to happen. They are doing well in the polls, although I have seen quite weird outliers. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know whether basically the pollsters' models are finding it hard to cope with this not being the usual landscape. I mean, you know everything there is to know about polling, but I've seen things in the same week that are meant to be covering the same dates, showing Reform going up 4 points and Reform going down 3 points from different polling companies. If you combine those two, it goes beyond the margin of error.
And we've seen one poll putting the Greens ahead of the Lib Dems this week on national vote share as well, just behind Labour and the Conservatives.
Yeah, and another poll putting the Conservatives level with Lib Dems.
Polls in between general elections and this far out from them are interesting, but not hugely predictive. what are actuals are local election results, and Reform continue to do well. Notably, so do the Lib Dems and occasionally the Greens too. Reform's highest percentage was recorded in any election since its inception, beating the 65.1% recorded in County Durham in the May elections this year. It was in Skelton East, so Redcar and Cleveland Council, not too far from Durham, same sort of northeastern part of the country, and they got 65.3% of the vote from nowhere. They hadn't stood previously. And then way down, you've got Labour in second on 19, Con on 14, Lib Dems down on 1%. So a massive Reform gain from the Tories. However, the party, Reform UK, has managed to shed a remarkable 8 councillors in September alone, and they've lost 24 since May for a variety of very embarrassing reasons, and they've lost staff from HQ as well. So I'm not going to go through all of the reasons for all of them, but you won't be surprised by many of them. So in Doncaster, there were 4 councillors elected in May that no longer represent the party. One was expelled for extremely hateful posts that were put on social media prior to his election, including one that said Hitler would have been a effing legend if he'd killed Muslims instead of Jews.
Oh, geez.
He got followed a few weeks later by Samuel Booth, who resigned for undisclosed personal reasons. 2 more got suspended for setting up an unauthorised company with a fellow councillor to try and capitalise on the council's role in managing Doncaster Sheffield Airport when it reopens. In Durham, another number of dropouts, a couple of them because they failed to declare employment with the council, things like that. The list goes on, and it stretches all the way down to Devon and Kent. You know, this isn't just something that kind of has been affecting the north of England in terms of Reform behaviour. And it is just this litany of hate speech, corruption, or gross incompetence.
They have also lost, I saw recently, someone because they're not like that.
Yeah, no. So there has been some people defected. One defected to UKIP because I think they so
is UKIP now the moderate choice?
Okay,
as opposed to what is happening?
The Reform South East regional organiser described the county's Reform councillors as wankers who hate each other. Councillor Amelia Randall offered some evidence to his claim and defected to UKIP immediately after the party conference. So there's been plenty of that. And then when we get to their headquarters, similarly, people that have not been up to the standards that Nigel would like the world to believe he holds all of his staff and elected officials to. So there was a guy who was their donor manager. So I guess he looks after, the fundraising side of things. And he expressed the view that 10 million people needed to be deported from the UK, and ominously suggested that the alternative was something, quote, that cannot be written in YouTube comments. I will leave you to fill in the blanks as to what he might have meant. Reform UK have covered this up. They have not publicly acknowledged any action against him, but he looks to be out. His LinkedIn profile immediately deleted and hastily removed from all of the promotional materials he'd been on, including he was the main model for the Reform Football Club football t-shirts. Remember they did a Reform FC and he was the main model on it. He's gone. So on the one hand, you've got them doing quite well at elections that are happening and they are winning quite well. But then behind the scenes, they're all falling out with each other. They're all getting caught up to their eyeballs in corruption, scandal, and grotesque hatred and racism. So if that keeps happening, it needs to feed through to the mainstream media. And I know that the British media has a habit, particularly the tabloid media, of building people up only to crush them. And they've done that so successfully with many a celebrity over the years. And one would hope that is part of what will happen to Nigel Farage. but for the BBC, who still platform him and reform far, far, far too much. And you would hope that they would be removed from that kind of gutter tabloid journalism. And everything I've just read out to you, all that stuff I told you about, the scandals that Reform are embroiled in, are not getting covered in mainstream news at all.
No. I think there is something happening, but I don't think it's been correctly identified. I think there's a bit of a category error. I think basically Reform have become the favorite new party of protest, which is why you see them overperforming significantly in local by-elections and things like that, because they've become the X that you put in if you dislike the government, but also don't want to reward either Conservatives or Liberal Democrats because you see them as establishment parties.
Yeah.
So they've become really the most effective way to upset all the people that you see as being in power. And I think that's why they overperform, especially in by-elections. But I think that's been misread as a shift of the country's politics. And actually, when you dig underneath all the stats to do with whom do you trust on policy areas, who do you think will represent the country better abroad, who is more responsible with the economy, they're nowhere near those stats.
No.
I guess what matters is if we get to a significant milestone or an election and people are still, their dominant feeling is a wish to punish people in power, as opposed to them seeing some improvement in their lives that's worth protecting. That will be, I think, the key to whether this sense of insurrection turns into a more permanent thing. But I would suggest there's a fundamental problem with right-wing politics. You know, they're out of ideas.
Yep.
That seems to me just so clear and obvious. There was a bit of the Kemi Badenoch speech that we didn't touch on last time. Let's have a little listen.
Britain is stagnating while the world around us moves on. We are competing with 1 billion people in India striving to become middle class. We are competing with economic success stories like Poland. While Britain was redefining what a woman is, China was building 5 nuclear reactors.
What Kemi Badenoch is saying there is that while liberal democracies debate useless things like human rights, autocratic regimes like China, are busy building power stations. And it's like, so what is it you're saying? Because they're building power stations because the state is doing it, but you don't want the state to do it. You want private companies to do it. That takes
it's like
more time.
The nonsense of Singapore on Thames. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we really like Singapore? 80% of people in Singapore live in public-owned housing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand anything. Shut up.
I look at the reports, and the dominant descriptor of the Badenoch speech, including by people like Lewis Goodall, was eye-catching. I mean, what does that even mean? Promise to scrap stamp duty. Eye-catching. Is it realistic? There is a lot of agreement that it's a bad tax. But it makes the state a lot of money. So what are you replacing it with? Will there be a land tax? How will farmers react to that? Just throw stuff around and people go, ooh, that's very eye-catching. And eye-catching is kind of how much of the West has ended up in this clown car hurtling towards authoritarianism.
Indeed.
Eye-catching brought us Brexit. Eye-catching brought us Johnson. Eye-catching brought us Trump. And I think it's time to acknowledge that. And I think it's time for journalists to acknowledge that you can't stop at eye-catching. Eye-catching is not enough to make a policy.
Quiet Riot. Netflix has a new monstrous story to tell. In 1950s Wisconsin, Ed Gein lived quietly on a decaying farm, hiding a house of horrors so gruesome it would redefine the American nightmare. Driven by isolation, psychosis, and an all-consuming obsession with his mother, he committed crimes that would haunt Hollywood for decades. The third and most harrowing installment of Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan's anthology series. Watch Monster, the Ed Gein story, streaming now only on Netflix. Quiet Riot.
And finally, we're diving headfirst into the gloriously guilty pleasure of the trashy novel, the kind of work that might not win a Booker, but absolutely wins your heart. And we're doing it in honour of the late, great Jilly Cooper, who gave us worlds full of champagne, scandal and show jumping, and remind us that reading for fun is something we should celebrate, not apologise for.
Hi, my name is Jackie Collins. And you better watch out, because it's hot, it's steamy, and it's coming to your screen soon. Yes, it's my new blockbuster, Lucky Bitches, the story of two sexy English sisters from Maida Vale, Joni St. Angelo and Jackie St. Angelo. Lucky Bitches. It has lipstick, it has sex, it has men, it has women, it has more lipstick.
It's true. We know, for we were there. For we are those lucky bitches.
Because, let's be honest, we all have that one book we never lend, never admit to reading on the train, and yet couldn't put down, whether it's a torrid romance, over-the-top intrigue, or pure escapist joy. These are the stories that pull us in, make us laugh out loud, and let us switch off from real life for a while. And isn't that the joy of it? Books that make you blush, bite your lip, and maybe even sneak a little gasp. That's Jilly Cooper territory right there. A little scandal, naughtiness, and a whole lot of don't tell anyone I'm reading this. So, Alex, let's compare our own page turners without pretension and pay tribute to writers like Jilly, who gave us permission to revel in the sheer pleasure of good, juicy reads. Kick us off.
Can I just say, I try. I really do try. It gets to a point where I think, I want to see what all the fuss is about with the Da Vinci Code. So I try. But
that was
just so
painful.
bad.
That was painful.
It's so badly written. Badly written things are like nails on a chalkboard.
Of course.
But there are also some things, and they include some classics. I finally made myself read Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
It's a terrible book.
But I don't think we can put it in the trashy novel.
We kind of can. I think it's a book that's talked about a lot by people who haven't actually read it. It has some very interesting ideas in it, which is, I think, why it's acquired classic status. But I think it's a terribly badly written book. My trashiest thing is probably Gone Girl. I really enjoyed that.
I bloody loved that.
But obviously, it's quite a cheap story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of pinched from various places and stitched together. I'm not sure about its feminist message, or rather, I'm not sure its message is entirely feminist.
No.
Let's say. So you have to kind of read it with your brain turned off slightly, I would say. But I found it very pleasurable read. What about you?
Well, before I tell you mine, I just want to tell you a story about my late grandmother-in-law, so my partner's grandmother, who was called Edith. And Edith was a very religious, small C conservative woman who had lost her husband many decades before. And Edith quite liked a Mills and Boon, but she didn't want to go to hell for reading the naughty bits. So she would get her friend Ethel.
Because they were quite racy.
They were very racy, especially for the time. Yeah. So she would get her friend Ethel to read them first with a black marker pen. And Ethel would redact the naughty bits. And then when she'd finished, she'd hand it over to Edith to read, right? So Edith wanted to preserve her own place in heaven, did not give a shit about poor Ethel's mind being corrupted by all the smut. And what's the point of reading a Mills and Boon if you're not going to read the naughty bits?
May I offer a charitable explanation? If Edith was doing it to help her friend go into heaven, rather than because she enjoyed the naughty bits, they both get to go to heaven, you see, because they're both doing it for the right sorts of reasons. Mills and Boon were called Viper Nora in Greece. I don't know why.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anyway, Edith and Ethel, if you have made it up to heaven, I hope you're enjoying the fruits of your abstention. For me, the kind of escapism that I think we're talking about in these page turners is summed up perfectly by the writer Lisa Jewell. So she's a really prolific whodunit kind of writer. And there's just something about her books that are just smart enough that you don't go, oh my God, this is absolute trash. I cannot read it at all. It keeps you guessing. There's always a twist. You often don't quite guess the twist. And then they're so heavy that you feel like you need a flow chart to keep up, because I find with some psychological thriller things, there are so many characters that you have to go back several chapters to remember which one was actually which. You can dive straight in, you can lose a whole evening and come out the other side satisfied. You've been on a mini roller coaster, but no actual emotional homework. So that kind of like effortlessly twisty narrative that helps you care about the characters. You're desperate to know who did it, but your brain isn't having to work overtime to crunch it all. And it's just like storytelling joy, really. The literary equivalent of a comfy sofa or a glass of wine without much
There's
guilt.
nothing wrong with that.
No,
I used to be obsessed with Agatha Christie. I learned English by reading Agatha Christie in English.
Cool.
My mum was a Harlequin girl in one respect. You know, she would read quite posh things, I guess, to read. But she had this Harlequin romance, I think by a woman called Mather, that she would read for her siesta because she got an hour off in the afternoon. And because she worked so late and then started so early because she had basically 2 jobs, she needed that hour's sleep. So she had this one Harlequin book that she read for maybe 10 years and had not even advanced one chapter. She would, she would use them basically as a sedative.
To nod off.
So
wonderful.
It became a running joke that Mum was still on the same paragraph of the same page of the same Harlequin novel 10 years later. So I thoroughly approve of them in that way. She didn't find them page-turner at all.
Quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite.
Quiet Riot.
And with that, we'll bring this Sunday school to a close. Go and read your Harlequin romance if you need a nap. Naomi, thank you for joining me. It's been a while since it was just the two of us together. And listeners, thank you as ever for tuning in, for giving us a little bit of your weekend headspace.
We're going to be back early in the week with a little Scotland special. And then again on Thursday with a Welsh guest, because we've got Plaid Cymru MP Liz Solwell-Roberts joining us to make her Quiet Riot debut.
Until then, please make sure you're following us on social media so you don't miss a thing, that you've left us a review on your preferred podcast platform, or another one. Nothing to say you can't subscribe to us on several platforms and leave us good reviews. And that you've shared your favorite episode with a friend to help us grow the show.
And speaking of favorite episodes, if there is a particular moment from any of our 2025 shows that has made you laugh, cry, or something in between, then do ping us a note to quietriotpod@gmail.com, because we're pulling together a highlights reel, if you like, a best bits of the year episode.
So that's it for now. Until next time, remember, we love you lots and lots, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And maybe I'll see some of you in a couple of hours for Podyssey. Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese. Quiet Riot is a co-production with Soundstone Global.
Quiet Riot.
So that's it for now. Until next time, remember... Oh, sorry, let that siren go by.